Welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Chris Rader. I'm glad to be your celebrant this morning, along with our worship leader, Reverend Thomas Perchlik. If you're a visitor today, we are so glad that you're here. We welcome every person of goodwill, just as you are. Whatever your religious background or beliefs, whatever body you inhabit, you are welcome here. We invite everyone to join us for coffee, treats, and conversation after the service. For the folks on Zoom, you'll find the order of service and the song lyrics in the chat. Barb de St. Croix is our Zoom host today. And now will the folks here in this building turn around and wave at the camera above the exit sign, welcoming, hi Zoom folks. And now, please take a moment and greet the people right around you, even if you don't know them. Few announcements before we get started with the actual service. So right after the service today, our membership team will host a newcomer chat. Anybody who's relatively new to our fellowship is welcome to attend. It's a time to get to know our minister and a few others and learn a little about CUUF and socialize over snacks. The Interfaith Justice Coalition is meeting here this afternoon as well. Socializing and snacks start at 1:30, and the meeting itself will begin at 2 o'clock. All are welcome. Our friends at First United Methodist Church invite us to a post-election time of reflection, debrief, sharing, and prayer. Next Sunday, November 24th at 3 p.m. First United Methodist Church is located at the corner of Miller and Washington Streets in Wenatchee. And now we have an announcement from our auction team. Uh-oh. Well, one team member is looking for the other team member, evidently. And I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at I hope you have had a chance to look at the auction items and sign up for some. I'm sure that's what they're going to talk about. Well, come on up, Louise.
Well, I'm without my partner in crime right now. Yes.
Uh-oh, crime.
She's here, but I don't have her code, so how the Wizard of Oz.
Sorry.
Okay, get turned off.
Okay. All right. I just woke up. Where am I? Oh, you are at CUUF, the land of Oz. See? I had the strangest dream that I was at an auction, and you were there, and you were there, and you were there. It was no dream, Dorothy. In fact, the goods and services auction is still happening. Everyone can still bid on the items that are hanging around on the walls. And next Sunday at 9 a.m., there is a last bid continental breakfast, and you can bid until 10:15, and then the auction closes before the service. Toto, there you are. What's that? Toto says pay for your items after the service next week. Remember to bring your cash or your credit card or checkbook and allow for extra time to get those payments made.
I know everyone will be saying,
Ah, there's no place like
CUUF.
All right. Thank you, Dorothy and friend. Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Pasquosa. For thousands of years, they have lived here, making a vibrant way of life and a rich culture from the land. We acknowledge that their land, like that of so many other First Nations in this country, was taken because the U.S. government broke treaty obligations and carelessly allowed uninvited white colonizers to settle on Pasquosa homeland. The Pasquosas still live here, still practice their cultural traditions, and are still working to have their rights restored and treaty obligations fulfilled. CUUF and other entities in the Wenatchee Valley are working with the Colville Confederated Tribes, including the Pasquosa, to restore some of that land to them, the Land Back movement. There is hope. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome. And now let's rise in body and spirit to sing our opening song, As Tranquil Streams, hymn 145.
I call you into worship. Worship is upholding what is of greatest worth. And I use these words from great A. Powell Davies. The years of us are short, our lives precious. Our days and nights go hurrying on, and there is scarcely time to do what little we might. Yet we find time for bitterness and evasion. What can we do to stretch our hearts enough to lose their littleness? Here we are, all of us, upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny. I add, even the 7 people on the space station are bound together with us. Here we are, all living our lives between the briefness of the day and the deep dark, kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life. How does it happen we are not kindred in all else? How strange and foolish are the walls of separation that divide us. In the Spirit, let us seek what is of greatest worth.
Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world, the chalice and flame symbolize people gathering together in loving community and inspiration. We're going to have our friend Lou Garcia help us light our chalice today. Come on up here, Lou. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join it now in lighting it. And in the sanctuary, we will speak these lighting words in unison. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share.
Did I do that right?
You did it right. You did it beautifully. Thank you. We'll do it. We'll have you do it again sometime. Oh, well, stay up here if you want, Lou, because Lou, I'm going to tell a little story. So, yeah. Are there any other kids here today? I didn't. Oh, Larry. Okay, very good. We've got kids in each front row. Oh, there you go. Well, this is the story of the ugly duckling, and most of you have heard this story before. There was a mother duck. Lyle, please stand up and form an arch, and Marisol, come on up here, and you and we'll sing our little song. Yep, now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. We have a wisdom reading today from Robin Goff, the head of the Light Center, a spiritual retreat center in Kansas, and a friend of mine. She says, "You are in this world to bring good into it. You are here to radiate love, light, and wisdom to all those souls in need. You have work to do, and you can do this work only when you have sorted yourself out and can become one with the whole, when you no longer stand apart and criticize and separate yourself from the whole. Do you feel at one with all those souls around you? Do you feel at peace with the world? Or are your thoughts conflicting, critical, and destructive? Always remember, love, joy, and happiness create the right atmosphere and draw all those souls of like mind together. So watch yourself and start right now drawing only the very best to you. You can change your whole attitude and outlook in the twinkling of an eye. Why not do it? Get into tune with all life and find that peace which passeth all understanding."
Now we connect with each other, affirm our connections, affirm how we are part of a loving community by sharing moments of great joy or great sorrow, moments of honoring, sharing our lives. To share, you come forward, we'll say your name, and then you may light a candle if you wish, or ask me to light a candle for you. Remember that you can only share things that you have permission to share. Remember, if it's possible, keep it very brief, 1 or 2 sentences. Remember that the point is to open doors of connection and deepen our sense of community and care of one another. Who wishes to share? Please come forward. In the light of love, warmth of this gathering, together let us breathe. Together let us remember the ground of our being, whatever name we give to it, the source of life and love that binds us together. In silence, let us sit. Take a breath. Today I ask, is anyone neurotypical? Or are we all deviations, all of us deviations from the norm? Is typical merely a stereotype? Is it a statistical creation? Is it an illusion born of prejudice and a desire for simplification? Of course. My universal leanings are to respond to that question about who is typical, to say no one is. A couple of months ago, I came across the word neurotypical. I was reading about mental health, and I discovered that this word was invented by people who were seeking to create a means by which understanding and acceptance of people on the autistic spectrum could happen. The point was to help so-called typical people to understand that they were different than other people. The founder of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, noted, "I have traveled around the world, and what is so revealing is that despite the differences in culture, politics, and language, how people dress, there is a universal feeling that we all want the same thing. We deeply want to be respected and appreciated for our differences. In recent weeks, I have talked to many in this congregation and other congregations in the city and in the world who feel very much out of the norm and atypical because they cannot understand, they cannot imagine the thinking that led to the election results. Choices made by almost half of the voting US population seem strange or confusing or just make us feel very different, atypical. We might even begin to wonder if maybe the word typical means irrational. Of course, the reverse is true. Those who can't understand compassionate, liberal, progressive, educated, religious people those who want to blame others and blame them and blame the elites and the immigrants for any of their problems will think the same thing. I don't understand those people at all. As Robin Goff said in the wisdom reading today, no longer stand apart and criticize and separate yourself from the whole. Feel at one with all those souls around you. Seek that. Affirm oneness. Radiate light, she said. At one level, this is very simple. Basic spirituality. But it's not always easy. And it's very difficult when others reject you or want to harm you or fail to serve you because they see you as an enemy or a challenge to what they understand as good. A little like the cat in the story today, who didn't like this stranger that the woman had brought into her house. The problem with the word neurotypical is that it implies a binary. That there's a typical way of thinking and interacting, and then an atypical way, or many. Like those autistic persons, different. But the reality is always more complicated than that. My brother's an electrical engineer, but he always loves those engineer jokes about people who seem different in the way in which they relate to other people because their minds are so focused technical matters, and understanding how things work. I heard this in one of the articles I was reading. There was this little story, or a little question and answer. The question was, how many autistic people does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer was, only one, but you're going to have to explain what you want to change that light bulb into. Thinking differently, we have different responses to life. Even in autism, which was, began as first named in 1903, our understanding of what that term was referring to and who those people are and how we help them has radically changed over time. And in recent years, in the last 15, 20 years, amazing changes. There was something called Rett syndrome. It's been removed it was in the spectrum and now it's been removed. There's level 1 autism spectrum disorder. It was previously called Asperger's syndrome. It's now just called autism spectrum disorder, level 1. Applies, there are other levels of that. There's childhood disintegrative disorder, CDD, childhood disintegrative disorder. There's Kanner's syndrome, which is also known as classic autistic disorder. And then there's the pervasive development disorder, not otherwise specified, which in the manuals is PDD-NOS. There are many different ways of being human, many ways, and we must work to help everyone be a part of the community. The worship theme for this month, big overarching theme, is pluralism. We're taking from our new statement of UU values. Merriam-Webster defines pluralism as a state of society in which members of diverse ethnic, racial, religious, or social groups maintain and develop their traditional culture or special interests within the confines of a common civilization. Article 2 of our new national bylaws expresses what we do to embody our value of pluralism. It uses 3 sentences. First, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, all sacred beings, all diverse in culture, diverse in experience, diverse in theology. We covenant to learn, the second point is we covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And then third, we embrace our differences, embrace our commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Yes. Again, pretty simple, pretty direct, pretty obvious, and yet it can be very difficult, especially when others reject you and want to harm you. But together we commit to celebrate, to covenant, and to embrace one another in diversity. So the main point, first point in that is that we celebrate that we are all sacred beings. This is a universal and then a capital U, universalist assessment that everyone is worthy. Everyone is worthy of love, as the story said. We go beyond the diversities of culture and experience and theology to find the worth and the light and the value, to see the best, affirm sacred goodness beyond all that. We've always done this through theology. We're diverse in theology. This originated in early Christianity when people of different understandings of words, people had disagreements and ideas about what was the relationship between these various things like Jesus and God and Spirit, and what were they and what do they mean and how. And there were some people who wanted to lock all that down, who said we all have to have the same beliefs and the same understanding. We must be unified or else we're in danger. Fear. And the Unitarians were those people who said, well, I don't know if we need to be absolutely unified in everything. We don't need to pin everything down. We need to trap ourselves in little mental boxes. So we've always been a community of openness to ideas, to understandings, to be able to talk about ultimate reality, especially ultimate reality, bringing many names, understanding the very different ways we experience life and the ways we can talk about it. We are. What's unique about us, of course, is most unique quality of Unitarian Universalists is that we are multi-faith in a congregation. But we work to build interfaith justice coalitions. So we understand that the words may differ, the rituals may differ, but the spirit is always the same, the commitment to care and compassion and connection. We're diverse in culture. We understand that people come with different cultures and expectations. I think that the Mexicans have this papel picado, the little cut paper, as it was a traditional art form in Mexico, and it's spread into the United States. And then near my neighborhood, there are pieces of metal that are on public parks that have been made to look like papel picado, that are not made of paper, made out of metal. But it's a way of affirming that there are different cultures. In this community, we're working to affirm the different cultures. There are people from all different parts of the world who come with different holidays and traditions, different ways not only of celebrating Christmas, but having many different other holidays too. We try to bring those together, affirm that diversity. And then diverse in experience. People are diverse in experience. We talked about veterans last week. And I once worked with a man who told me how meaningful it was that I asked him to stand with all the other veterans, because he had worked during the entire war, this was Vietnam War and beyond. He worked in an office in a army base in Kentucky. He never saw war. He never saw the violence of war. He never saw the battle in that sense. And there are other people who served the military during great arcs of, it's rare in this country to go an entire 10 years without having war against someone. It's one of the things I hate about this country. We have this propensity to get into war with people and not really figure out the other ways we could possibly work with people that are nonviolent. And I keep pushing on that, but at the same time, I want to honor the fact that people serve their country out of a deep commitment, and that the experience of that service can be different. We have different experiences, different understandings. We want to affirm the goodness of everyone. The Dalai Lama, leader of Tibetan Buddhism, said, "In today's interconnected and globalized world, it is now commonplace for people of dissimilar worldviews, faiths, and races to live side by side." The whole world, this is becoming common. And it is a matter of great urgency, therefore, that we find ways to cooperate with each other in a spirit of mutual acceptance and respect. So many different forms. So the second point is that we covenant to learn from one another, not just see the beauty and goodness across differences, but to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Old principle, we had principles we talked about, we affirm and promote the free and responsible search. This one, now we've added more complexity to that. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search. To learn, to understand ourselves better, to understand the other person, to understand the ways in which those are not going to go together well. I remember some Unitarian Universalists that I worked with in a finance committee who really had trouble understanding each other. Their personalities just didn't go together very well, and their monetary policies and ideas did not go together very well. And we were constantly trying to remind them that they were in loving community, even when they were in finance committee. It's hard. I remember when we started reading about how we had started to affirm gay people as Unitarian Universalists and as possible ministers in Unitarian Universalism back in the 60s. And then we realized there were lesbians too. So then it was straight, gay, lesbian. And then we realized there are some people who just didn't fit in any of those, so we started talking about bisexual people. And then we began talking about queer people and genderqueer people, the asexual, people who really don't have sexual orientation as part of central parts of their personality, but they still have to live in this world in which we're trying to bifurcate the world into male and female, and all this diversity, change, and our continued desire to understand how complex and different human beings are, to affirm that difference, and then still create a community that can work smoothly. I understand why stereotypes exist. Stereotypes exist because they make a complicated, difficult world a little bit more simple. The whole male and female division is very helpful in all sorts of circumstances, just making it easier to get through the day. And yet, it pulls us off of reality. It keeps us from actually understanding one another. I was just reading a book by Alice Munro. It's one story. The narrator is talking about her relationship with a male named Mike. And as children, she's struggling to define her relationship with this person. Like brother and sister is one that she considers, but it just doesn't quite fit. And then she notes, we were not like the wives and husbands I knew who lived in such separate worlds that they seemed barely able to recognize one another. Some of us experienced that culture. Later, she and a friend are going through early motherhood together. And they also read Carl Jung and remember their dreams. And she says, during that time of life that is supposed to be a reproductive haze with women's minds swamped by maternal juices, we were still compelled to discuss Simone de Beauvoir, Arthur Koestler, and T.S. Eliot's popular play, The Cocktail Party. By the way, T.S. Eliot was a child of a American Unitarian minister who converted to Anglicanism, but was still part of our community. His dad forgave him for leaving the Unitarian faith because he really never left. I always talk about the differences. Differences even, my wife and I really get along really well. We like each other. We talk about things. We love to talk. But we think about the world very differently. The way we navigate through things. You know, she tends to look for landmarks and experiences and patterns that she knows. And I tend to think wrongly, apparently. What matters is that we listen and we learn that there are different ways of moving through the world. There's a tendency for my style of thinking about space and places that tends to be more associated with males, and her way tends to be associated more with females. And yet I met someone the other day, a male, who clearly thinks like she does as he moves through the world. He has the male gender identity, but he clearly saw the world as she sees the world, looking for landmarks, familiar patterns, associations between things. And this is an ancient way of being. And to learn, there are strengths and weaknesses to each way. You just divide it and learn how we can both help each other. She's often helping me when my maps don't quite match reality, right? And now we have people who have maps about how government should go, and we are anxious because it doesn't match. It looks like they're going to a different place, a different world. Or they're going to a world that they think they're going to, but it's really not going to be that way. They're not going to a place, they think, where all of a sudden government is less troublesome and works better. They'll be in a place in which immigrants suffer. We've talked about this. I was so pleased that we did that forum with all the people who are working with CAFE and WIDGE, and the other hand in hand, people who are already working with immigrants to help, to understand, to learn. Just to learn about our own immigration system, how messed up it is, and it's designed to make it hard for people. To learn. And then to help others navigate that crazy way. To be human is to be part of a great, complex mess that's difficult and requires these commitments to love and to respect and to learn. And then to embrace, the third point is we embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Encounter differences, we need to use love and curiosity and respect to understand the differences, to work through them. There was this amazing movie, Rashomon, Japanese movie, great movie. In it, there is a murder and a sexual assault that's happened just before the movie starts. And people are talking about this murder, and they're talking about the assault. They're talking about what happened, trying to figure out what happened. And each of them has a different understanding. And their different stories are told. One is told from the samurai's point of view, and one is told from the samurai's wife's point of view, and the other one's told from this individual wandering in the forest, and that person's point of view. And then you find other points of view and other understandings that keep coming in. One point, a medium allows the voice of the murdered samurai to come and speak from the other world. All of them are confusing. None of them fit exactly right together. All of them are undermine reality, and there's a sense that reality is elusive, and it's all about bad people doing bad things, and so it's undermining the sense that there's a goodness in human beings, there's any sort of community. It's at a time of disaster, poverty, and famine. And at the very end of the movie, there's a Buddhist priest, and he sees that a baby has been found. They find a baby. People are talking about this murder and trying to figure it out. and they find this baby. And the one farmer says, I'm going to take this baby, and I'm going to adopt this baby. I'm going to love this human being, whoever they are, whatever their past. I'm going to love them and raise them. And it's at this moment that the clouds break open and the sun shines and the priest's faith in humanity is restored. No matter how difficult it is to embrace one another, to learn from our differences, and to see the beauty and light even across differences, we will continue to practice. We will continue to affirm. We'll continue to seek the light shining on all of us. And now, I believe we're doing, oh yes, and now the choir will respond, that's right. So Larry, come forward. They prepared a song. Larry has, the verses, the music's very old, verses written in the past century, and then Larry has added to the verses.
We are blessed by your generosity. May your gifts make a difference in our community through the ministries of this church. And now let's rise in body or in spirit to sing our closing song, Here We Have Gathered, hymn number 360.
Is Wayne standing?
And now as we extinguish our chalice, please join in saying the words printed in your order of service or on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and embody in our lives until we are together again. And our tradition is to now join hands in a circle and sing one last time together.